Do you know your origin story? I mean, literally the story of how and why you were born. Now, if you don't, I can guarantee what we're going to talk about today is going to help shed some light on you and your partner and why y'all do the things that y'all do. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Keandra, and today we're talking about the beginning of your life story and what that can entail. Now, if you enjoy content like this, I want you to go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification button to be notified when I drop new videos for you every single week. Oh look, we're just gonna get right into it. I was thinking about how when we come into this world, we all come into this world very differently. And it started to remind me of why we were born, how we were born, and how it impacts us as we grow, evolve, and change over time. It got me thinking about 5 different types of stories within your life that can really shed some light on you as a person, your own personality, how you operate in relationships, and how it can impact other relationships as well. And it's important for you not to only know your origin story, but also the origin story of your partner. Now, I completely understand that everybody may not have all of this information at their hands now or ever. Try to get as much information about your life story as you can. So that means you will need to get information from your primary caregivers, from family, from friends, from neighbors, whoever was around you. Make sure you're trying to get as much information as possible, because I can definitely guarantee that it will color how you see the world moving forward. So the first thing and the first story that I want you to know about is your conception story. I want you to think about how you were conceived. Now, there are so many people who were conceived very differently. I personally know people who are the result of incest. I personally know people who were raped and they had a child. I personally know people who planned their child and that child came from a loving, healthy, happy, 2-parent household. I also know people whose parents was just a one-night stand and they don't want nothing to do with one another. Whatever your conception story is, I want you to think about that. How were you conceived? How were you brought into this world? How? Because sometimes that really does play and have an impact on how we navigate through life. And I don't think we think about stuff like this a lot of the times. So this is going to require us to think more intentionally and more critically than we've ever thought before, probably in any of my other videos. The second story that I want you to think about was your pregnancy story. What was it like for your mother being pregnant with you? Oh, I know people go through all the different things during pregnancy. I'm talking about can't sleep, can't eat, nose spreading, feet swollen, back hurt, can't walk. I mean, some people say you get the glow, some people say you don't. Like, there's just so many different things that can happen during pregnancy. And my goal isn't to go down all of the nuances and the ups and downs of pregnancy, but I want you to figure out what was your pregnancy story and what was it like for your mother being pregnant with you? Was she healthy, working out all the way up until you were conceived? Was she eating junk food all day, every day with her cravings? Was she drinking? Was she smoking? Was she doing hard drugs? Because you have to remember this. When you are pregnant, everything that the mother experiences, the child experiences. I'll say that again. Everything that the mother experiences, the child also experiences. This is not new information, but I don't think we think about this intentionally. So that means every single thing that your mother ever ate, every single thing that your mother ever experienced emotionally or mentally, every single thing that your mother didn't do or did do, you felt. If your mom was anxious, you felt the anxiousness. If your mom was angry, you felt the anger. If your mom had these cravings and wanted pickles and Snickers, you ate the pickles and the Snickers, right? And so when we think about the pregnancy story, I want you to try to get as much information as possible about what that was like for your parent. Did she enjoy her pregnancy? There's a lot of women that I know who love being pregnant. They were like, oh my God, my hair is the best. My skin is the best. I got the glow. People do things for me. I enjoy being pregnant. And then there's other people who are like, baby, get this kid right up out of me because it's not working for me. I hated every single moment of being pregnant, right? There are people who that is their reality. And that just colors how we're brought into the world very differently. And every single pregnancy is different. But I think that there's something to be said about the pregnancies that are wanted and the pregnancies that are not wanted. Now, we're not going to get too deep here because I know y'all going to try to go in on the abortion piece and all of this stuff and the nuances. I'm not here to judge anybody. But what I do know is that when you desire to have a child and you want the child, your child feels that love. Your child feels that desire to want them. Your child feels that. The opposite is also true. When you don't want the child, where you like, ugh, I don't even know why I got pregnant. It's whatever. Fill in the blank for you. Your child feels that. Can you imagine being in utero and feeling like the person who conceives you doesn't want you? Woo, I'm gonna get out of there because that's spicy, but that's something for you to think about. The third story that I want you to think about is your birth story. How did you actually come into the world? Now, like with pregnancy, there are so many different ways, nuances. There's no right or wrong way, right? I'm not here to debate on if you should have a hospital birth, a home birth, to get an epidural, not to get. I'm not here for none of that. I just want to put some questions and have some thought-provoking conversations about what your birth story entailed. Truthfully, did you have a hospital birth? And did it go well? I literally remember my sister, she was having her second son and her blood pressure was extremely high. And they were like, ma'am, it's dangerous for you and the baby. So we need to take the baby now via C-section. And this was unplanned. She just went to a regular doctor's appointment. And then next thing you know, she was having a baby, right? So needless to say, long story short, we wind up having an emergency C-section with her. And guess who was in the room? Me. I literally saw how my youngest nephew was born. I literally saw them cutting. I literally saw him being pulled out. I literally saw my sister being duped up on the drugs and trying to be present, but barely present, and her concern because her son came so unexpectedly, right? This just is an example of how anything can happen during a birth story. And so during that time frame, even if you had a good positive experience at the hospital or not so good, that's not the conversation here. But what was that like for you? I see babies being born and they are literally born in traumatic situations. They are rushed, right? Because the blood pressure is dropping or the heart rate is dropping or the umbilical cord is wrapped around the neck or whatever. And things are moving a million miles a minute, And so they are born in a high intense environment, high anxiety environment. And so these are just some things that I want you to think about as you're thinking about how you were birthed into this world. Did you have a very, I'm not going to say woo-woo, but did you have a very woo-woo experience where you were like, you know what? I'm going to have a water birth at home and I'm going to enjoy, and it's going to be me and my midwife and my husband and my partner, and we're going to birth this baby naturally. Was that the story? If it was, there's nothing wrong with that. Was it gentle? Was it traumatic? Was there any health complications? Were there any medical issues? Were there any interventions? What was that for you? Get as much information as you can about that, because that also colors how you are and how you play into this world. Now, the fourth story that I want you to think about is the postpartum story. How was your mother and your father and your parents after you were born? How did they manage you? How did they manage childhood? Was there postpartum depression? Was there stress? Were you guys homeless? Were there medical issues? Were there discord between the parents? Was there a lack of sleep, so there was no attachment emotionally or physically to you? What was that like? Because postpartum plays a massive, and I do mean massive, role in how you develop and the connection that you have with your early caregivers and your early childhood primary caregiver. Not even getting into the nuances of like what happens in surrogates and what happens in foster and adoption, and we're not getting into all of those nuances, but I think it's important for all of us to know these types of stories about our lives as much as possible, because it really does have an impact on how we are in the world. And I'm not saying that this is a full disclaimer. I'm not saying that if you've experienced any type of negative thing in your birth story, your conception story, your postpartum story, any of your stories, that you are going to be a horrible, raggedy person. We're not saying that. We're not saying that at all. But we're saying as much information as we know about how we were brought into this world, the beginning of our life, it will literally provide us with so much information about who we are, about how we operate, about our personality, about some of the struggles that we go through, about some of the positive things and the great things about us as well. Now, the fifth and final story that I want you to think about is, what was the first 5 years of your life like? Studies have shown, psychology, all of the things, that the first 5 years of your life are crucial. That's when you develop brain functioning. That's when you develop your motor skills. That's when you develop the emotional attachment that you have to your primary caregivers. That's where you learn to speak, to walk, to talk, to do all of the necessary things that we need to have in life. Of course, we don't remember the first 5 years of our life. A lot of people, I'm not going to say everybody, because there are some people who claim to have memory, but typically we really don't have that much recollection of the first 5 years of our life. So it requires our family, friends, neighbors, and people who were around us growing up to give us that information about who we are. So that means if you don't remember something, ask somebody. Talk to somebody, have a conversation with somebody. And I know it might be weird to go up to them and go up to your grandma and be like, "Hey granny, so what was the first 5 years of my life like?" They would probably be like, "This is random," but it may spark a conversation that you didn't even know that you needed to learn more about yourself and even about your parents, or a lack thereof. So I want you to think about, in your first 5 years of life, what happened? Did you have any medical or health issues? Did you have them? Did your primary caregivers have them? Your mother, your father, your grandmother, whoever raised you, did they have medical issues? Were there any type of homelessness? Did you experience any type of accidents where you broke an arm or got into a massive car accident, or, had learning disabilities or any type of issues early on in your life? These are all crucial things for you to know about yourself. To skip over is the great times too, right? The first 5 years of life, like, most people love babies, and when they're young, it's like, "Oh, you so cute." Oh, it's when you grow up that it's a different story. But I don't want us to forget the good moments of all of the things that I just talked about as well, right? So the good moments of when you were conceived, the good moments during your pregnancy story, the good moments during your birth story, the good moments that happen during postpartum, the good moments that happen during the first 5 years of your life. Those are some of the most crucial things that you want to be able to hold on to. And I think one thing that we're missing in this generation is photos. I remember back in the day, I might be dating myself, but y'all remember them Polaroids where you had to chick, and then you gotta shake it like a Polaroid picture, shake it. Okay, I digress. But you have to shake it, right? And so I remember having so many photo albums growing up with Polaroids of me playing outside, and birthdays, and Christmas, and getting bikes, and doing all of these things. And so I'm glad that those moments that I can't remember because I was too young, like going to Disneyland and them taking me to the park and, doing all of these things, I'm so glad that they were captured somewhere, because I can't remember them. So I can look back and be like, "Oh, wow, On my 4th birthday, they gave me a tricycle or a bike or however old you are and whatever you do at 4. Oh, I can look back and say, oh my gosh, on my 5th birthday, you guys took me to Disneyland. You know, like I can look back on those moments and say, wow, there were some great times, even in the midst of some of the bad. So I know this was a little lengthy. I know this was a little deeper than the content that we had, but I want to encourage you to learn as much information as you can about yourself. And if you can, encourage your partner to learn as much information about those 5 stories that we talked about as well. Because when you know your story and they know their story and you guys actually talk about it and have a conversation about it, you will learn so much and you'll be like, oh, that's why you do that. Oh, that's why you have abandonment issues. Oh, that's why you're fearful of elevators. Oh, that's why you have physical issues because of something that happened to you early on in your life. Like things start to make sense when we have quote unquote what I like to call more color. So if you enjoyed content like this and you want a little bit more of it, I need for you to smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe and stay connected because we will be dropping new videos like this every single week. Until next time, see you guys later.